Have you ever laid in bed at night replaying the same scenario over and over? What you said, what you should have said, what might go wrong tomorrow, until suddenly hours have passed and your mind just won't shut off. That's overthinking, and it's exhausting. Chase Hill, in his book, How to Stop Overthinking, doesn't just tell us to think positive or calm down. He gives a roadmap for untangling the endless loops in our minds so we can stop analyzing life and actually start living it. Today, we'll walk through the key insights of this book, why we overthink, how it sabotages our peace, and most importantly, practical ways to quiet the noise. Hill begins by clearing up a big misconception. Overthinking is not the same as being thoughtful or analytical. Thoughtfulness is useful. You carefully weigh your options, consider outcomes, and then make a decision. Overthinking, on the other hand, is when your mind loops the same thought over and over without ever reaching a resolution. He compares it to being on a hamster wheel. You're moving, you're sweating, you're expending energy, but you're not actually going anywhere. And worse, the more you spin, the dizzier and more exhausted you become. Why do we do this? Hill says it often comes down to fear. Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of being judged, fear of failing. And because our brains are wired to keep us safe, when fear shows up, the brain goes into problem-solving mode. But here's the catch. It tries to find the perfect answer, the flawless solution that guarantees no pain, no embarrassment, no mistakes. And since such perfection doesn't exist, the mind just keeps spinning. He gives a brilliant example. Imagine your phone buzzes and it's a text from your boss. It says, "Can we talk tomorrow?" That's it. No emoji, no context, just those 4 words. Now, if you're prone to overthinking, your mind takes off like a runaway train. Am I in trouble? Did I mess up that report? Maybe I offended someone in the meeting yesterday. What if I'm getting fired? You replay every email, every word, every possible scenario. By the time tomorrow comes, you've imagined a dozen disasters. But what if the reality is simple? Maybe your boss just wants a quick update. Maybe it's even good news, a promotion, a new project, a compliment from higher up. The difference between panic and calm here isn't the text message. It's the story your mind attached to it. And that's Hill's first big lesson. Overthinking is rarely about the facts of reality. It's about the fearful interpretations we create around reality. Now Hill turns to the damage it causes, and it's bigger than most of us realize. Overthinking doesn't just waste time, it steals joy. Think about it. How many moments in your life have you missed because your mind was somewhere else? You were physically present at dinner, at a birthday party, on a walk, but mentally you were replaying old mistakes or worrying about future problems. He shares the story of a woman who struggled with this constantly. After every social gathering, she'd replay the entire night in her head like a movie reel. Every sentence she spoke was scrutinized. Did I sound stupid? Did I offend anyone? Were they laughing at me or with me? Do they even like me? The result? She began dreading dinners with friends. Even when people reassured her, "You're fine, we love having you around," her brain wouldn't let it go. The loop kept spinning. Hill calls this the analysis trap. The more you analyze, the less you trust yourself, and the less you trust yourself, the more you analyze. It's a self-feeding cycle, and the harder you try to think your way out, the deeper you sink. Here's the heartbreaking irony. Overthinking feels like you're being responsible, like you're being thorough. It feels like you're solving problems. But in truth, it's the opposite. Real problem solving moves you forward. It identifies the issue, takes action, and resolves it. Overthinking, on the other hand, traps you in endless loops with no resolution. It gives you the illusion of productivity while quietly draining your confidence and peace of mind. And this cost isn't just emotional, it's physical. Studies have shown that chronic overthinking raises stress hormones like cortisol. That means worse sleep, weaker immunity, headaches, even increased risk of anxiety and depression. So the cost of overthinking is not just a few lost hours. It's your energy, your happiness, your health, and your trust in yourself. So how do we break free from the hamster wheel of overthinking? Hill says the very first step is awareness. Awareness simply means catching yourself in the act. Think of it like suddenly realizing you've been humming a song without noticing. The moment you notice, you're no longer lost in it. You've stepped outside of it. Hill suggests starting with a deceptively simple exercise. The next time you notice your thoughts spiraling, pause and say out loud, "I'm overthinking." It might sound almost silly, but that small label creates an immediate gap between you and the thought. It's like stepping out of a noisy room and closing the door behind you. The noise might still be there, but now you're on the outside, observing it rather than drowning in it. Let's take an example. Imagine you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., replaying tomorrow's presentation in your mind. You think, what if I mess up? What if they ask a question I can't answer? What if I blank out completely? Each what if spawns 10 more, and before you know it, your heart is racing as if the disaster is already happening. Now here's the shift. Instead of going further down the spiral, you catch yourself. You whisper, I'm overthinking right now. That small acknowledgement changes the dynamic. You're no longer a prisoner of the thought. You've become a witness. Hill explains it this way. Awareness disrupts autopilot. Most of us run on mental autopilot all day, letting thoughts pull us wherever they want. But when you shine a light of awareness, you interrupt the pattern. It's like pressing pause on a movie. For the first time, you realize, I don't have to keep playing this scene. And from that space, something amazing happens. You gain choice. Instead of compulsively spiraling, you can decide, do I want to keep replaying this? Or do I want to breathe, redirect, and move on? Hill even shares that this practice doesn't just stop overthinking in the moment. It builds long-term mental strength. Every time you notice and label an overthinking spiral, you strengthen the observer part of your mind. Over time, that observer grows quicker, sharper, and stronger, so the spirals don't trap you as deeply or as often. He compares it to turning on a light in a dark room. The furniture doesn't magically disappear, but once you can see it, you stop tripping over it. This is where the book shines. Hill doesn't stop at theory. He gives practical strategies. The what's the worst that can happen question. Often overthinking comes from exaggerating risk. Hill suggests challenging it. Ask yourself, what's the absolute worst case scenario? Then, if that happened, could I handle it? Most times you'll realize the worst case isn't as catastrophic as your brain is making it. Example, you're worried about giving a bad presentation. Worst case, maybe you stumble over words, maybe someone notices, but life goes on, you can survive it. The 5-minute rule. Hill shares this gem. If something can be decided or done in under 5 minutes, do it immediately instead of spinning on it. Example, debating endlessly about replying to an email. Instead of overthinking, set a timer, write the reply, and send it. Done. Journaling to clear mental clutter. He explains how writing your thoughts down gets them out of your head and onto paper. Once written, they lose some of their emotional charge. He tells the story of a man who journaled every morning about his worries. Over time, he realized 90% of what he wrote never even happened. That realization alone broke his overthinking habit. Hill reminds us, the opposite of overthinking is not positive thinking. It's action. Action creates clarity. Action proves your fears wrong. He tells the case of an entrepreneur who kept hesitating to launch her product. For months, she tweaked, researched, analyzed, but never launched. Finally, she committed to taking one small action each day, making a call, sending an email, posting online. Within weeks, momentum replaced fear. Lesson: you can't think your way into confidence. You act your way into it. A deeper cause of overthinking, Hill explains, is lack of self-trust. When you don't trust your ability to handle life, you try to control everything in advance with thought. So how do you rebuild trust? By keeping promises to yourself. He gives a simple but powerful example. If you say you'll wake up at 7 and you do, you're teaching your brain, I can rely on myself. Over time, these small wins stack up, and the more you trust yourself, the less you feel the need to overthink every move. One of the most transformative tools Hill offers is mindfulness. Overthinking lives in the past. Why did I say that? Or the future. What if this goes wrong? Mindfulness anchors you in the present. Hill describes mindful breathing, just 2 minutes of focusing on your breath, noticing each inhale and exhale. It sounds simple, but it interrupts the spinning and brings you back to now, the only place life actually happens. He even cites how some readers found peace by simply focusing on small daily rituals, brewing coffee, walking outside, washing dishes, but doing them fully present instead of lost in thought. At the heart of the book, Hill emphasizes, you can't stop thoughts from coming, but you can change your relationship with them. Think of thoughts like notifications on your phone. You don't have to click every single one. Some you swipe away, some you ignore, some you pay attention to. Overthinking happens when we click every notification. Peace begins when we choose wisely. So what's the takeaway from How to Stop Overthinking? First, recognize that overthinking is not a character flaw. It's a habit, and like any habit, it can be changed. Second, awareness is the doorway. The moment you notice the spiral and label it, you begin to step outside of it. Third, action beats rumination. Even the smallest step forward quiets fear more than endless thought ever will. Fourth, trust yourself. Keep promises, collect small wins, and your brain will learn that you're capable of handling whatever comes. And finally, remember, you don't have to believe every thought. Thoughts are just visitors. You get to decide which ones stay. Chase Hill's message is powerful. Peace of mind isn't about silencing your brain. It's about no longer being controlled by it. So next time you catch yourself spiraling, take a breath, smile, and remind yourself, I'm overthinking, and I don't need to go down that road today. Now I'd really love to hear from you. What's one thought loop you often find yourself stuck in? Maybe it's replaying conversations, worrying about the future, or doubting your own decisions. And more importantly, after hearing this summary, how do you think you might handle it differently? Drop it in the comments below. I'll be reading them. And who knows, your story might help someone else who's struggling with the same thing. If this video brought you value, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button for more deep dive book summaries, and share it with a friend who could use a little mental quiet. Because life is far too short to spend entirely trapped inside your head. It's meant to be lived fully, here, now, in this moment. And every time we step out of overthinking, we step a little closer to the peace and clarity that's been waiting for us all along.